Have you ever sat in a meeting, watched a decision unfold, or seen a promotion announced and thought to yourself, how? How did that person get there? We've all witnessed it. The individual who seems to master the art of talk over the discipline of work. The leader who radiates confidence, but is surrounded by the wreckage of bad decisions. History is littered with them. Emperor Nero, famously fiddling while Rome burned, a symbol of decadent incompetence. Or in our modern era, figures like Elizabeth Holmes, who built a multi-billion-dollar empire on a technology that never once worked. It's a pattern so consistent it feels almost deliberate, and that's because it is. What if there is a twisted internal logic, a dark algorithm, that explains why the least qualified often end up with the most power? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of history's most misunderstood political philosophers, Nicolo Machiavelli, and merging his brutal 16th-century insights with cutting-edge psychology to answer that very question. This isn't just ancient history or abstract philosophy. This is a force that operates in your office, your government, and your daily life. Understanding this paradox isn't just about satisfying curiosity. It's about building a defense. It's the key to recognizing manipulative forces in our society, and could even help you navigate your own path to genuine influence. Our story begins in 16th-century Florence. Exiled from the political life he loved, Niccolò Machiavelli sat down to write what would become the most infamous political playbook in history, The Prince. Unlike the idealistic philosophers who came before him, Machiavelli wasn't interested in how leaders should behave in a perfect world. He was a realist, obsessed with how power actually worked in the messy, brutal, real one. His central thesis can be distilled into one devastating observation. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. This statement cuts to the heart of our paradox. Machiavelli understood that the appearance of competence is often infinitely more valuable than competence itself. Why? Because genuine intelligence, the deep, nuanced kind, comes with a set of fatal liabilities in the arena of power. Think about the traits of a truly intelligent mind: nuanced thinking, the admission of limitations, ethical considerations, and self-questioning. Now place that mind in a typical power struggle. It sees complexity where others see simple solutions. It acknowledges potential failure where others make grand, sweeping promises. It hesitates, weighing options where others project absolute, unshakable confidence. In environments that reward bold assertion over thoughtful deliberation, which is most corporate and political environments, these intellectual virtues become crippling handicaps. The intelligent individual is often left explaining why something is difficult, while the confident fool is already being celebrated for promising it's easy. Machiavelli's observation wasn't just philosophical guesswork, it was a prescient prediction of modern cognitive science. Centuries later, psychologists David Dunning and Dunning-Kruger identified the cognitive bias that now bears their name. The Dunning-Kruger Effect is the phenomenon where people with low ability at a task dramatically overestimate their ability. They're too incompetent to even recognize their own incompetence. Conversely, true experts, aware of the vast complexity of their field, tend to underestimate their own competence. They know what they don't know. Shakespeare captured it perfectly centuries before the psychology was named. The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool. This bias is the engine of our paradox. Modern research confirms it operates with terrifying efficiency in leadership selection. A pivotal 2020 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that individuals who displayed overconfidence were more likely to be perceived as leaders by their peers, regardless of their actual competence. The appearance of certainty was more persuasive than demonstrated expertise. We see this everywhere. General George Armstrong Custer's supreme confidence led to catastrophic military defeat, yet it earned him rapid promotions and devoted followers. In the tech world, founders who speak in absolute visionary terms, like WeWork's Adam Neumann, often secure massive funding over more measured, experienced competitors. His unshakable belief, despite a fundamentally shaky business model, attracted billions and built a cult-like following. This pattern is global. Japan's Masayoshi Son of SoftBank lost over $70 billion on failed investments, while maintaining investor confidence through sheer force of personality. This is the confidence illusion in action. Our primitive brains are wired to use confidence as a shortcut for competence, a trait that served us in simple, immediate tribal settings, but fails us catastrophically in a complex, modern world. But the story doesn't end with one incompetent individual rising to the top. The real damage begins once they get there. Machiavelli observed a crucial and devastating defensive tactic used by weak leaders. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. What Machiavelli understood is that insecure leaders feel threatened by genuine talent. They cannot have competent subordinates who might expose their limitations or pose a challenge to their authority. Therefore, they engage in what organizational psychologists call competence threatening. Instead of selecting for talent, they select for loyalty and deferential personalities. They actively choose weaker, less capable subordinates to ensure they remain the smartest person in the room, even if that room is now devoid of actual intelligence. This creates an incompetence cascade. A single incompetent leader creates a circle of incompetence beneath them, who in turn hire even less competent teams. Incompetence becomes institutionalized, spreading like a virus throughout the organization. History is our textbook. Emperor Commodus, successor to Marcus Aurelius, systematically replaced Rome's capable administrators with flatterers and entertainers, dramatically accelerating the empire's decline. In modern times, we see this in political systems where cronyism and patronage trump meritocracy, often with devastating economic consequences, as seen in Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe. This creates organizational homophily, the tendency for individuals to associate with similar others. The result is an echo chamber of bad ideas, insulated from constructive criticism or conflicting viewpoints. Have you ever worked in a place where asking questions was discouraged? Where raising concerns was labeled as not being a team player or negative thinking? You were witnessing the defensive walls of an incompetence cascade being erected. Yet, even knowing all this, we must confront an uncomfortable truth. We are complicit. We, the bystanders, the employees, the citizens, are psychologically wired to fall for this trap. The reason lies in a concept known as cognitive closure, our fundamental psychological desire for definite answers over ambiguity, confusion, and doubt. Genuine expertise is almost always accompanied by nuance. Real experts understand the limitations of their knowledge. They say, "It depends," "the data suggests," and "there are trade-offs." But these intellectual virtues are psychologically unsatisfying. They require mental effort and force us to sit with uncertainty. As Machiavelli noted, the great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances as though they were realities, and are often more influenced by the things that seem than by those that are. In times of crisis or uncertainty, we don't rally behind the leader who says, "This is complex and will require careful thought." we flock to the person who confidently proclaims, "I alone can fix it." The solution is simple. A jarring 2017 experiment from Yale researchers highlighted this flaw. They presented subjects with mathematically complex policy problems. The findings: participants' ability to interpret the data correctly was hijacked by whether the results aligned with their pre-existing beliefs. Most disturbingly, the most mathematically skilled participants were the best at using their intelligence to rationalize their preferred incorrect conclusion. The more complex and frightening the world becomes, the more susceptible we are to simplistic thinking. Our psychological immune system fails precisely when we need it most. If the game is so clearly rigged, why don't smart, ethical people just fight back? Here Machiavelli delivers his most chilling insight. Morality is a strategic handicap. In his most infamous passage, he advises that a prince must learn how not to be good, and to use this knowledge or not use it according to necessity. He is arguing that in a competitive power struggle, the individual willing to cross ethical lines has access to a toolkit that is off-limits to their morally constrained opponents. They can make promises they have no intention of keeping. They can exploit fears and prejudices. They can deceive, manipulate, and undermine. Consider the stark contrast in ancient Rome between Cicero and Julius Caesar. Cicero, a brilliant orator and principled defender of the Republic, was ultimately outmaneuvered by Caesar, a man willing to break the most sacred norms by marching his army across the Rubicon River. Caesar's tactical brilliance was amplified by his moral flexibility. This pattern is validated by modern research. A study from the University of British Columbia found that psychopathic traits, such as a lack of empathy and guilt, were positively correlated with rapid career advancement in corporate settings, especially when paired with social charm. This creates a race to the bottom in organizational culture, where unethical behavior is rewarded and eventually becomes the norm. Understanding these dark patterns can feel cynical, but knowledge is our first and best line of defense. The goal isn't to surrender to the darkness, but to build systems and personal practices that are immune to it. At the individual level, cultivate intellectual humility. Actively recognize the limits of your knowledge. Embrace the phrase, "I don't know." This is not a weakness. It is a cognitive immune system that makes you resistant to the seduction of false certainty. Develop media and information literacy. Become a connoisseur of information. Question the source, the framing, and the evidence. Learn to discern deep analysis from superficial spectacle. As Warren Buffett advises, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Apply this to your information diet. Value nuance. Train yourself to be comfortable with complexity. Be suspicious of simple answers to complex problems. The correct path is rarely the one that feels easiest. At the collective level, demand robust accountability. Support structures that provide clear, honest feedback. This means independent boards, transparent reporting, and cultures that reward truth-telling, even when it's uncomfortable. The Boeing 737 MAX crisis is a tragic example of what happens when accountability fails. Foster cognitive diversity. Seek out and champion teams with different perspectives, backgrounds, and ways of thinking. Homogeneous groups create blind spots. Diverse teams challenge assumptions and lead to better, more accurate decisions. Design for transparency. Advocate for rules and systems where complexity cannot be used as a shield. Sunshine laws, conflict of interest disclosures, and clear metrics of success make it harder for incompetence to hide. Machiavelli has been misunderstood for 500 years. He wasn't advocating for evil, he was performing an autopsy on it. By exposing the mechanics of power, he gave us the tools to build something better. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. This profound observation reminds us that authority itself deserves no automatic respect. Power must be earned through worthy action, regardless of the title on the door. The path forward isn't to pretend these dark dynamics don't exist. It's to understand them so deeply that we can transcend them. It's to design systems that account for human weakness rather than exploit them. It's to develop the personal courage to value truth over comfort. While stupidity may sometimes win battles, intelligence coupled with moral courage is the only force that can win the war and create a world where merit truly matters. So I want to know, have you seen these patterns play out in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. If you found this exploration valuable, help us spread this crucial knowledge. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, understanding the darkness isn't about surrendering to it. It's about gaining the power to create light.